Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Really excited to be here for our final day of our story writing sessions this week. Let's just see who's here to say good morning. So you can type in good morning into the question and answer box, and then we can see who's here. Let's have a quick read down the list. I can see Connie, good morning. Good morning, Jimbo. Good morning, Dilly. Good morning, Belle. Good morning, Fern. Good morning, Megan. Good morning, Naya. Good morning, Ruby. Good morning, Jessie. Good morning, Elizabeth. Good morning, Elliot. Morning, Hayden. Elliot, my morning's been fantastic so far. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. Good morning, Hattie. Good morning, Ella. Morning, Poppy. Good morning, Jack. Good morning, James. Key Worker Group 1, good morning. Nice to have you with us this morning. Hi, Hannah. Good morning, Harry Potter Group in school. Morning, Tom. Morning, Holly. Let's see if we've got a couple more of these coming through. Good morning, Ava. Good morning, Charlie. Morning, Bella. Morning, Lorna. Hello, Harrison. Hi, Jake. Good morning, Louis. Good morning, Ava. Morning, Esme. I tell you what, boys and girls, it is a big day in school today. I'm sorry, I'm just going to. Got a cup of tea, but I've left my tea bag in. So I just need to take that out, because otherwise, it's a really exciting morning in school this morning. This morning it is Year 6's final day at Brindley. So we've got some children who have been back in Year 6 since half term, and today is their last day in school today with us. So we're really excited to be able to celebrate that with them. Now, some of the Year 6 children who have been at home, we're really looking forward to celebrating them with tonight, because what we're doing is we're having a special presentation ceremony, but we're doing it all online. So just like how you've tuned in for our writing lessons this week, all the teachers are going to get together tonight. We are going to do that presentation ceremony online. And so it's a really exciting day for us. It's a really big day in school. So we're all in a very good mood today because it's a real momentous occasion. So it's really nice to be able to kick off and do this bit of writing with you. So let's have a look. Just see if anyone else has said hello. We've got Elliot, Florence. Good morning, Holly. Morning, Ben. Morning, Lily May. Jimbo. It's nice to see you too. Happy birthday, Ava. Brilliant. It's quite a few children's birthdays today, I think. Right, let me share with you my screen. Here we go. So today is going to be split into a couple of parts, really. The first part, we're going to finish our story and we're going to talk about how we're going to bring this to a conclusion. So we've done our great exciting action sequence, and now we're going to round off our story. We're going to take that excitement down and finish it off. Once we're going to do that, we're going to look at putting our whole story together. We're going to look at editing, improving our writing, and then the final thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at a way of beautifully presenting our work. Now, you know, one of our values in school is to be proud, and so we're going to have a go, and I'm going to set you the challenge of creating some beautiful artwork to go with your story to make us all feel really proud of what we've achieved together this week. So let's have a look together at the last part of our story. So where we left it yesterday, we'd written that really exciting action sequence where we had like a film or like a cartoon strip. We've broken that action down into smaller chunks to really help our reader imagine it. I've given you the start of mine with my giant eagles that came in and swooped and fought that dragon, and you went away and wrote yours and finished that section off. So the last part of our story then is we've had this great big battle, perhaps, or the rescue has happened. So that excitement has happened. And so the last part we're going to do is we're going to put our character in the place where she was heading in the first place. She's going to complete the journey. So for my character, if you remember, this is the same setting we described earlier on in the week. She's going to get here. But I think really, in my imagination, I don't want her to walk into an empty hall. I think when she gets there, she's going to get there and she's going to be surrounded again by friends, by family, and she's going to perhaps enjoy a feast and have a really wonderful time and feel really safe to be back home. So we're looking for where our character goes last today and some of the feelings that are associated with being in that safe place. So when we're thinking of those feelings, I've put this grid back on to help us show, not tell, those feelings. So we're going to describe what our character does rather than to simply say they were feeling tired, they were feeling sad, they were feeling nervous. So I think my character at the end of my story, she's going to be so happy that she is going to be surrounded by her friends. I think she's probably going to be absolutely pooped. I think she'll be so tired because of all that day she's had. She must have got to the top of that mountain in the first place. But if they've had this big battle, she's going to be so tired. I think she'll be struggling to keep her eyes open once she's finished her feast. And then probably quite excited to know that maybe, just maybe, there's another adventure around the corner. So what we need to do today is two things. We're going to need to describe our character racing back to the castle, to the hall, or where your character was going to if you chose somewhere slightly different. We're going to describe what's going on in there, and we're going to describe how our character feels. I think what I think would make a really nice story ending is at the very end, if we ask the reader a question around who knows what was going to happen tomorrow, or who knows what was coming next. Because then it leaves our reader with that sense of, oh, do you know what? I'd really like to read the next story that came out by this author. So, using those things, I'm going to show you two things on this screen. On the right-hand side is a wheel of emotions. In the middle, you can see some of the main emotions people feel: sad, mad, scared, joyful, powerful, peaceful. And then on the next layer of the circle, so if you look at where it says sad, it breaks it down into slightly finer words. So someone might be sad, but actually are they feeling guilty, ashamed, depressed, lonely, bored, sleepy? So it breaks it down into the next bit, into some finer emotions within that big bracket of sad. And then it gives a really another way of thinking about it. So actually you're guilty, bashful, ashamed, stupid, depressed, miserable. So it gives us some synonyms to help us expand our vocabulary. Now, the last part of my story then sounds a little bit something like this. Let me see if I could just make that a bit bigger for you. I don't quite know how. Right, now the dragon was defeated. Indigo raced down the mountain and headed to the great hall. Over hill and through the valley she ran until she reached the castle. Panting, she opened the doors and stepped in. She was welcomed by a great cheer, hooray, and the banging of mead flagons on the tables. A mead flagon. Have you ever seen a film that perhaps is set in the past where they have it's like a tankard, so it's kind of like a big mug with a handle on. That will be a flagon, and a mead is a type of it's a kind of drink that people used to drink when people lived in halls and had swords and castles. You can still buy it now, actually. She was welcomed by great cheer, hooray, and the banging of mead flagons on the tables. She was home. She settled onto her chair next to her father and took a long drink. After the feast, she desperately tried to keep her eyes open. As she left the hall, full of cheer and merriment, she smiled from ear to ear. What would tomorrow bring? So what we've tried to do there is we've taken her back to the hall. I don't think I really needed to add in lots of detail about her journey back to the hall because that's quite uneventful. Our main event has happened. I've tried to use some longer sentences using some subordinating conjunctions, like until she reached the castle. I've got a fronted adverbial in there that we've talked about this week. Panting. It describes how she did it. She opened the doors. And then I've got a short sentence I've included as well. She was home. Nice, simple, straightforward, but it really has an effect because that word home is really important. She was at home. And then I've ended with that question. So after today's video and lesson, what I'd like you guys to do is to go away and have a go at writing the end of your story in that way. Okay, that's your first job to do after today. Your second job after today is once you've written your final chapter, your final part of your story, is we're going to put it together with the other parts of our story to make one big brilliant story. So what I thought I would do today is I would read through my story out loud so you can hear how my story progresses, and then we're going to have a go at looking to see how we can make it any better and check things along the way. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to play the music that we talked about that we'd used earlier in the week, so I can read my story out loud and make it sure it sounds really dramatic. So I'm just going to get the music ready. Okay. Hear and listen well, my friends, and I will tell you the tale that has been told for 1,000 years and more. It may be an old story, yet as you will discover, it troubles and terrifies us now as much as ever it did our ancestors. For we still fear that evil that stalks out there in the darkness and beyond. We know that each of us must, in our time, in our own way, must confront our fears and grapple with this monster of the night who, given a chance, would invade our homes, even our hearts, if he could. So roll back the years now, back to the 5th century after the birth of Christ, and come with me over the sea to the Norse lands we now know as Sweden and Norway and Denmark, to the ancient Viking land of the Danes and the Geats and the Angles and the Jutes. This will be our here and now as this strange tale of courage and strength unfolds. Indigo sat high above the glassy lake, feeling as if she was on top of the world. Across the horizon birds flew and called to each other, while down below the rocks stood silently like the soldiers outside the king's hall. Her golden quizzical eyes peered out of the jagged peaks and snow-capped mountains. Indigo's long tumbling hair fell down her back as the wind whipped and whistled around her, causing her to shiver. While she was watching the clouds pass by the azure sky, she held her sword in her powerful hands, practicing the movements she'd been taught by her father. A simple gown of brown woolen material covered her powerful body and muscular arms. She was strong. She was powerful. She was a warrior. Indigo walked down the mountain, slipping and sliding on the loose rocks, when she realised that she wasn't alone anymore. Do you know what, boys and girls? I've just realised I've missed a section of my story. It's a really good job that I'm reading this out loud to check I've got all the parts in, because I haven't started to describe where she's going and where she's going. So part of what we're doing today is, when we're reading our story out loud, is we're checking that it all makes sense and it all hangs together well. So I've already spotted a couple of mistakes I've made, even just by reading that out to you today. I've spotted that I've missed a section from my story that's really important to explain why my character's going on their journey. I've also spotted a couple of mistakes in that first part, where I think I've missed out the word material. A simple gown on woolen, a simple gown on brown woolen covered her powerful body. I'm quite sure that needs to be a simple gown of brown woolen material covered her powerful body. So I've made mistakes when I've been writing and sharing this with you across the week, and now's our time, when we're going to put this all together, for us to have a go at correcting those mistakes all together. So I've spotted a couple of things there that I know I'll need to go back and do. So I need to find my missing chapter from what we covered this week. Let's have a go back and just have a read that part as part of our story as well. We've done so much learning this week. Here it is, brilliant. What I'm going to do then is I'm just going to stop sharing the screen with you just for a second, because what I'm going to spend just a moment doing is making sure that all hangs together nicely. So I'm just going to do a little copy and paste to add that in and edit as I go along. This, boys and girls, is the point of checking our work and editing and improving. And I wanted to show you, really, we all need to check that work. The amount of times Mr. Martin often gets somebody else to check things like letters we send out to mums and dads. I have to proofread those, and often Mrs. James in the office, she does that for me. I say, Mr. James, please read this through, please help me. And she edits some of my work for me. Okay, let's see if that's any better. Let me share that with you again. Swap that around. And let's have a look at showing you this again. Here we go. So I've added in this top blue section in the top right hand corner about where my character was going. Let's carry on. Now I've worked out that mistake. Indigo was on a journey to the castle where there will be a warm feast waiting for her. She could imagine the sights and sounds of the feast as if she was there already. The torches dancing in their holders along the stone walls, and the tables laid with cloths as smooth as snow. The darkness will be banished to the corners of the room where the fire couldn't reach. In the centre of the room will be the roasting meat ready to be devoured. On either side of the fire, long benches would lying down, what's spotted by there, would be lying down, waiting to be sat on. Smoke would drift through the air, hugging the guests and drifting out through an open window. She knew she had to make it to her father's birthday. He was, after all, lord of the castle, and she was supposed to sit at his right-hand side. She set off down the mountain in a hurry. She didn't want to be late. Now I can go to my next section of my story. So I've already spotted another little mistake I need to change in that bit. Indigo walked down the mountain, slipping and sliding on the loose rocks when she realised she wasn't alone anymore. She could sense another being near to her, close enough to touch with a large talon gripping the rock nearby. Rough metallic scales covered the talon and the arm of the creature, spreading out to the large wings which were twice the size of Indigo's entire body. A powerful neck led to a menacing head, complete with glaring eyes and mean teeth. Indigo froze. She'd never seen a dragon before. Her heart beat fiercely in her chest, backing away slowly. She staggered and slipped on a nearby stone, falling back. Oh, I've spotted another mistake there. I've written falling backs instead of falling back. The dragon heard the noise and whipped its head around. It stopped, it stared, it sniffed the air. Indigo jumped up and ran as fast as she could, but the dragon had got her scent. Closer and closer he came, faster and faster, until he was ready to pounce. Dun, dun, dun. Just at that moment, when all hope was lost, she heard a strong cry carry across the wind. Then another. What was it? The dragon, which by now was almost pinning her against the rock face, turned its vicious head towards the horizon. Indigo followed his glare. While she was looking up, she saw an outline coming closer to her. An eagle larger than any she'd ever seen before soared towards them on the wings, a steely glint in its eye. Swiftly, the dragon raised its giant bulk onto its two back legs and roared. Her hands shook, her mouth went dry, and she opened her mouth to scream. The dragon reached up, flapped its leathery wings, and burst up into the sky. Across the mountainside, the shadows of two beasts raced towards each other. The dragon roared as the eagle swooped back down, gouging flesh from the beast's back. Now the dragon had been defeated. Indigo raced down the mountain and headed into the Great Hall. Over and through the valley she ran until she reached the castle. Panting, she opened the doors and stepped in. She was welcomed by a great cheer and the banging of mead flagons on the tables. She was home. She settled onto the chair next to her father and took a long drink. After the feast, she desperately tried to keep her eyes open. As she left the hall, full of cheer and merriment, she smiled from ear to ear. What would tomorrow bring? And that's my story that I've written so far. This is my first draft. I've had my first go of writing my story out. And as I've read it, I've spotted in each section that we've written across today a couple of errors there that need correcting before I can share this story with anybody else. And that's really what we're going to focus on doing today. So when we write, it's really important to know that we don't write beautifully and perfectly every time, all the time. Actually, when we're being creative and we're trying to get all those ideas down, sometimes what we end up doing is making some silly errors, some bits that normally, if you were just focusing on the one thing, you wouldn't do. But because we're trying to be exciting, we're trying to be creative, we're getting to the flow of our writing, sometimes we make those kind of errors that just need correcting. So what we're going to work on then is how we correct those errors and how we're going to put that right. So I've got a couple of key steps that I think are really important. Now, the first key step is to read it out loud. Now, sometimes when you read something out loud to yourself and you're just reading it to you, what you do is you read what you think is written. You know what it was supposed to say, so that's what you say out loud. But if you read it to somebody else, or you really slow down and read it like you're reading a story to it like a toddler, like a fairy story, it really helps you slow down and spot those mistakes. So rather than reading it quickly, just that moment when all hope was lost, she heard a strong cry carrying the wind, then another, what was it? That's not going to help me spot my mistakes. But slowing down and putting on that fairy tale type of voice really helps us. Just at that moment, when all hope was lost, she heard a strong cry carry across the wind. Then another. What was it? The dragon, which by now was almost pinning her against the rock face, turned its and then see how it's helped me spot that mistake about that was supposed to be vicious face towards the horizon. So number one thing in your story to do is to read it out loud. And then when you come across and spot something, then you can make an edit in your writing there and then. So you can start to put it right straight away. So I would look at that bit where it says vicious and go, oh, that's not quite right. What I'm going to do, boys and girls, is I'm going to do this with you on my screen. So what I'm going to do is we're going to edit this little section together, how I would edit it, how I would look at editing it. So let me just end my slideshow and then I can show you my screen as I actually do it. Let's close those. Okay, so share. Here we are. Now, hopefully what you'll be able to see, I'm just going to share the screen so you can't see my face, so it's a little bit bigger. Hopefully what you'll be able to see here is me editing along. So I read my story out loud and I spotted that I'd written the word vicious here. I've just highlighted that. So that needs to change for vicious. Vicious. Ooh, vicious. Vicious. I'm not sure if that's quite right. Do you know what I'm going to do? What my trick is when I'm not quite sure if something's right, is I put a little wibbly line under it. Because I know that's a word then I need to come back and have a look at later on. So I'm going to put a little wibbly line there underneath to go, right, that's a word, Mr. Martin, that you need to check. So I'll keep on reading. So again, I'm going to put on that story voice. Or followed. Now I know in followed I just put 2 W's. While she was looking up, she saw an outline coming closer to her. An eagle, larger than any she'd seen Let me read that again because I'm not quite sure that that's punctuated correctly. An eagle larger than any she had ever seen soared towards them on the wind. I needed a small breath there. I think I'm missing a comma. An eagle larger than any she had ever seen, comma. Oh, wrong place. Ever seen, comma, soared towards them on the winds and steely glint in its eye. Oh, steely glint in its eye. Let me read it back again. An eagle larger than any she'd ever seen soared towards them on the winds, a stealing glint. Did I mean stealing? Maybe it's a steel. I'm not quite sure of my word choice there. Would it be a sinister glint? A determined glint? I'm going to use the word determined, I think. Determined. A determined glint in its eye. An eagle, larger than any she'd seen before, soared towards them on the winds, a determined glint in its eye. Yeah, I like that. That sounds right now. Swiftly, the dragon raised its giant bulk onto its back two legs and roared. Her hand shaked. I think I'm missing. And roared! Exclamation mark, because it's exciting. Her hand shaked. Her mouth went dry. Her hand shaked. Her hands shook. Her hands shook. Her mouth went dry, and she opened her mouth to scream. The dragon went up, reached up, flapped its leathery wings, and burst up into the sky. Across the mountainside, the shadows of the two beasts raced towards each other. The dragon roared as the eagle swooped down, gouging flesh from the beast's back. Right. So I know then now that I've read through it slowly, and I've made changes to make sure it makes sense. So I had some missing words. I had some past tense words that weren't quite right that I needed to have a look and correct. So the next thing I need to do is where I've got some spellings, I know I wasn't quite sure of vicious, and I can see I've got a little wibbly line for eagle. That doesn't look quite right to me. So the next thing I'm going to need to do is use a dictionary to have a double check about what that word is. Perhaps you could ask an adult around you to help you find a dictionary, or they could help you with your spelling. If you choose to present your work on your computer, then you could use the spell checker function in here. So I've just quickly got a dictionary here. I'm just going to have a double check. So vicious, I need to make, I know it begins with a V, I know it's a VI. I'm going to turn to my VI words. No T, vicious. Get rid of my little line now. An eagle, I've realised, has got an A in it. So what I've done there is I've read through, I've made any changes I've needed, I've checked for spellings, I've used my wiggly line trick in case I spot something I need to check. Now my last thing I need to do is there anything I could do that would make this even better? Perhaps it's additional description. Perhaps it could be a bit more action or something that doesn't quite make sense. And then you can add those sentences in. The final thing you would do then is once you have redrafted it, so you've gone through and you've checked it, you've made some edits, you've improved it, and then you're going to redraft your final copy. Now, this is our Be Proud, and this, boys and girls, is going to take you a couple of days to do it beautifully. So if you finish your story today, then over the next few days, perhaps the weekend or next week, what you can focus on is editing, improving and checking your story. An adult is a really good person to read to or read with, so they can help spot anything you might not be sure of. And then I want you to have a go at presenting your work beautifully. Now, I'm going to share with you a different screen now. Some of your mums and dads will follow our Twitter account. And what we've been doing in school with some of our Year 6 children is we've been creating some beautiful work that we're really proud of. And I thought it would be really nice if you could apply the same techniques for your stories as well. So I'm going to share with you our Twitter account here. Let me just make sure we can put that on both. Here we are. So you should be able to see our screen. Now, what Mr. Manns put on to Twitter yesterday is a selection of the beautiful work the children in school have been doing. So what we can see here is they've designed a beautiful front cover. These front covers, they've chosen different mediums to work into. Some children have used pastels, some children have used charcoal, some children have done pencil drawings, but they've created a front cover for their stories. What they've also done is then inside their stories, is they've presented them beautifully. So here I hope you can see that you've got Mr. Manns who's flicking through an example. So let's look at that in a bit more detail. So they've split each section of our story, each section of the story onto a double page spread, and they've then illustrated those really carefully. We've got beautiful handwriting, straight lines, so there's some real thought given to layout, but then also the illustrations that go with it really bring that story to life. So what I'm giving you the challenge of is creating something like that. That's your challenge. Now you can send these in on the computer. You could ask parents to take pictures of them to email in and email them to your year group email addresses. So just to recap, because I know we've gone through a lot today, is what I'd like you to do is job number one is finish your story. Round it off so your character goes back through. Job number two is then read through, edit and check. I'm going to put those steps for you to do onto the Google Drive so you can refer back to them. Step number three is then to present your work beautifully in a way that you should wish. So we've got some artwork, we've got a final beautiful copy in brilliant handwriting that you feel so proud of, and then you can share those with us so we can choose the best entries that we can email around to everybody. Boys and girls, we're so excited about reading these stories. They're going to be fantastic, but I'm going to warn you, what I've asked you to do is going to take quite a bit of time. It's going to take quite a bit of time for you to finish, redraft your story, and then to create a beautiful finished product. The piece of work that I've just shown you from our Year 6 children, it took them a few days to do the artwork and present it because they really took their time. So over the next few days, if we say then, if you could email in your stories by Wednesday next week, maybe Wednesday night time when mums and dads may get home from work, but if we could have your stories by Wednesday night time, it gives us a few days to give a good read, and then we can share a selection out before we break up for the summer holiday. Okay, so this is the last one of our sessions together. I've really enjoyed talking to you this week. I've really enjoyed seeing your names. I've really enjoyed you commenting on the things that we've talked about there. That's absolutely fabulous. Now, if you're a bit behind in our stories, so you may have missed a lesson or you've got a section to catch up with, that's absolutely fine. The power is yours now to go away, complete this work and share it with us when it is beautiful. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hopefully will be able to talk to you again next week, where we're going to do a big assembly to finish off the year where everybody's welcome to. And boys and girls, I'm currently working on the plans for September for you to all come back to school and be with us. I can't wait to see you all again in school, learning, laughing, being with your friends. That's really exciting, boys and girls, and I can't wait for that to happen. So I look forward to reading your stories, and I will see you all soon. Goodbye, everybody. Bye.